Good afternoon and welcome to the Sound Energy PLC investor presentation. Throughout this recorded meeting, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions could be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab situated in the right-hand corner of the screen. Simply type in your question and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company can review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll. I'd now like to hand you over to Graham Lyon, Executive Chairman. Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you, Paul. Well, thank you very much for everybody joining us this evening. It's been a while since we've spoken to our shareholders and stakeholders, and it's about time for a catch-up. We took on this IMC platform to help hopefully involve shareholders in our Qs and As in a more regular basis. So we expect lots of activity this year, quite a lot of news coming. Although it's been very quiet over the last few months, as many of you have pointed out to me. Just to reiterate, any price-sensitive information comes via the RNS system, so there won't be any delays on that front. I'm going to talk to you today about the four elements of what's going on in Sound, the projects, our finance, what we're doing with the M&A transaction, and finally a little bit on exploration. And then lots and lots of good questions, so I'll run through those as quickly as I can. Couple of slides on disclaimers, and then let's hit the meat of the project information. You know, we have the gas field in the east of Morocco, 377 BCF of gas to develop. We've got a 25-year concession, and we're doing it in a stepwise phased approach. The first phase of that is the micro LNG project, which is well underway, and I know you're all desperate for it to be on production like we are, and so I'm going to go through that in some detail over the next hour. Well, less than that, but I'll include micro LNG in quite a lot of that conversation. We have a gas sales contract for 10 years with Africa Gas, around about $8. And for those of you who are on the money, you'll know the American gas price at Henry Hub is about $1.60. National balancing point, that's the UK, gas price is about $7.60. So, you know, we've got a fair price from Africa, not too far off what the European price is now. We expect to see about $30 million a year of revenue from this project at a 100% basis. And from that, there's a 5% royalty that's taken off. And then we have a operating cost, which we pay to Ital Fluids. So perhaps we'll see a net back of somewhere in the region of $2 to $3 a million cubic foot. We do expect first gas this year. So as we go into the project, I think we just need to reiterate to people the various elements of this project, and not all of it is under control of Sound Energy. Our operating company, Sound Energy Morocco East, is responsible for the access road, and you've seen probably pictures of that coming out on our tweets or on the websites or LinkedIn. And we're at the stage where this is mostly gravel and laid, and pipelines. Pipes have been put in to take care for any wadis or water runaways. We will put the blacktop down, the bitumen, around about May when things warm up. So that project's going ahead. That's part of the activities all on schedule, and we're moving forward quickly. The second part that Sound Energy Morocco East is responsible for is our wells. The TE6 and TE7 wells are available for production, and what we need to do now is put them into the mode with the completion appropriate for development. And that means putting our chrome tubing in, and that's the production tubing you saw loaded at site. That's waiting there for installation. And we bring in a rig. It's the Star Valley Rig 101, and that's due in after the person who's got it at the moment finishes working with it, and we expect that to come towards the end of March. So we've got the production equipment there. We've got the rig coming at the end of March. The Christmas trees are on their way from Singapore, and they'll be in sight, but we don't need to use a rig to install the Christmas trees. Last year we did the packer settings, so and we've tested all the wells, so they're in good shape, and we're ready to get that work completed very shortly. The next part is the meat of the project, and this is what Ital Fluids are undertaking for us. And you'll know that this is under a vendor financing model, so it's not a traditional EPC, engineer, procure, and construct contract where the operator, in this case SEMEAST, would have been in control of everything. So Ital Fluids, because of its vendor financing, it's almost like a turnkey. They come along, give us a plant that's up and running and hand us the keys, except they're going to operate and maintain it as well. At the top of the graph or the slide, you'll see the plot layout. This is the design of all the various bits of equipment. And if you go to our website, you can see a 7-minute video of a walkthrough of all the different pieces of equipment. But here's the real equipment in the project, built, ready, or about to be completed and sent to site. The guts of the project is the micro LNG cold box. That's the equipment that manufactures the LNG. It takes the gas and then cools it down to a minus 162, I think it is, degrees C, and puts it into a liquid form. That's been fabricated, that's ready, and that's ready for coming to Morocco. The element in the middle is the mixed refrigerant makeup unit. So this is the liquids that you use when you cool the gas down to the cryogenic temperatures you're looking for, and that's being manufactured, I think, in Singapore. This is a picture on the right here, is parts of the inner tank of the LNG storage tank, the big storage tank, and this is I've seen it physically, I've seen it myself, and it's in north of Spain at the moment, and that will be due to leave Spain in the next week or two and be in Morocco very shortly after. On the bottom is another part that's critical to the gas processing. It's the amine unit, and these are being manufactured and are ready to come to the site. So things are moving on, and we'll go through some of the elements of this in detail. Some very good questions about the micro LNG plant, and I'll take that in the questions. The third bit that Sound Energy Morocco East is responsible for is taking the gas from the wellheads and moving it across to the manifolds and entry into the production system. And this is being undertaken from a subcontractor we're using, Gas Liquids Engineering out of Calgary. And the design's pretty much finished on that. And then we move into procuring the flow lines and beginning to the construction installation side of that. You can see it's a 3-well design. The third well is TE112, which will be the next well we drill as a development well after first gas. Last part of the project is getting the gas to the market. And whilst we manufacture the gas and manufacture the LNG, we store the LNG in that big LNG storage tank, then somebody has to transport it to market and sell it. And that's Africa Gas, our partner. Africa Gas are preparing right now trucks to collect the LNG at the site. They are preparing small storage facilities in each of their clients' bases, and then they're preparing a regasification site at each client's premises. So it's very important for us to work closely aligned with Africa Gas to ensure that our plant is ready when their trucks are ready, our wells are ready when the plant's ready. All of those 3 parts have to come together. So we're doing that, and I do expect first gas this year. The gas field that we have, the concession that we have, as I mentioned, 377 BCF of gas developed in a stepwise manner. First phase of that, the micro LNG, but the second phase of that is a bigger project, and it's the pipeline project, which connects us to the GME pipeline. So this will take 300 million cubic meters a year as opposed to 100 million cubic meters a year with the Africa Gas micro LNG project. The key elements to get this project in place and get it funded, and as a lot of you asked, is when is the FID, the final investment decision? Well, the key elements are that we get the debt in place, the financing in place, and then that's a combination of debt and equity. We have a gas sales agreement, and we have the engineering contracts. Once all of that is put together, then we can take the FID. We've got a lot of work done, and we've explained this in the past, but we are now working very closely on the debt financing with Atidjuafa Bank. That has certain CPs in it, which require to be harmonized with the gas sales agreement. And we're doing that work now. That work is under the auspices of the authorities in Morocco, and documentation is between both ourselves, ONEE, Atidjuafa Bank, and the ministries. So all of that's coming together, and we hope to be able to move forward with those concluded agreements very shortly. Once we've got those agreements in place, we do need to refresh the feed because time has passed since the last work was done, costs have changed, and a slightly optimized development has been put in place. We expect this project to be delivering revenue-wise about $90 million a year, and over a 10-year period, each year, with the around about 32 million of gas sold every day. And the netbacks for this will be much higher because the operating cost per unit of gas produced is a lot lower. Finally, I just say that the main point of this pipeline project is the uncontracted gas. Almost double the volume of the gas that we have at the moment in place is uncontracted, and therefore having the opportunity to sell more gas down this pipeline is important. Where we are financially, here's the statistics. You've seen some of these before. We've got cash for the project in our microLNG project. We have a debt facility from Africa Gas, of which around about $6 million is undrawn at the moment. You know that we have some debt facilities with the Eurobond, and that's out there at the moment. We have good supportive shareholders. Our two main shareholders, Oil and Gas Investment Fund of Morocco and Africa Gas, are both supportive of our strategy and our plan to deliver revenue through a staged approach of the Tendrara field development. But 2/3 of our shareholders are retail shareholders, so that's you guys. So thank you very much for your support and sticking with us so far. We have a plan. We are trying to execute on it, even though it's a little bit slower than I think most people want. The Atidjuafa Bank debt, we've presented that information previously, so I'm not going to go through that, but just to say that everything seems to be the same as we expect. The missing part for the project financing is the equity portion, and rather than try and raise equity on a market, which these guys would dilute us to hell, we have taken the route to divest a little bit at the asset level, and we announced this transaction with Cal Valley, where they come in and take an equity position across the licenses, including the concession. They buy into the project by paying our back costs. They fund the equity portion of the phase 2 development, and if their funding cap doesn't cover all of the funding, they advance us some additional funding should we need it. So this is important for us to show that all the building blocks for phase 2 are in place, save the detailed agreements, and we're working very hard on putting those together. So sorry, it's not a blow-by-blow, hour-by-hour update on that, but these detailed agreements take some time to get through. The definitive agreements are between Cal Valley and Sound are underway, and they've completed their due diligence. They are very actively liaising with us. I even had a call with a voice message and a call with the chairman of Cal Valley this morning. They are part of the Octavia Group and have the same shareholders as a very big Yemeni family conglomerate that's been trading in over 90 odd years. They've met all the key stakeholders in Morocco and the authorities, and we're looking forward to closing this deal with Cal Valley. So it's very much on. Finally, I'll just briefly touch on exploration, because this is the romance in the portfolio. We have a lot of gas here. We have a very large acreage position, and the potential to unlock this requires us drilling some wells. We've identified near-term drilling opportunities through TE4 on the Horse and SPK1 on Grand Tendrara, and the M5 big exploration well on the NOL license. Now, part of the deal with Cal Valley is to fund the drilling of TE4, and as soon as that deal with Cal Valley is closed, we will start looking at the TE4 drilling timing. And I'll talk a little bit about that. It was a good question on that coming up in the presentation. So I'll move, if that's not too boring for you, to the Q&As. There's a lot of them, and Paul, if I can pass back to you.
Fantastic. Yep. Absolutely, Graham. Thank you indeed for the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, as Graham said, please do continue to submit your questions just using that Q&A tab. Just click Q&A, scroll to the bottom, type your question and press send. But just while Graham takes a few moments to review those questions submitted today, I'd like to remind you the recording of the presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be seen by your investor dashboard. Graham, I'm just going to bring your camera up. As you can see, we received a number of questions, both pre-submitted and throughout today's meeting from investors. So thank you to those investors for submitting those. Could I please ask you just to read out the questions and give responses where appropriate to do so, and I will pick up from you at the end.
Cheers, Paul. Thanks. So look, I'm going to read these questions. I'll paraphrase them if they're a bit long, because there's one or two long questions. But the key one I think everybody wanted to know is, can you clarify the current position regarding the micro LNG plant and the project completion and test phase of that plant? So look, I've explained that to you, where the 5 elements are from the different contractors that are responsible and the different operating parts. The key area, and I want to spend a little bit of time talking about this, the key area is we expect from Mittal Fluids, and they've confirmed that they can deliver the plant this year. The key area is the LNG storage tank, and will that be ready? Because it's no good us producing the gas, processing it, making LNG, and having nowhere to put it. So that's, sorry about this. There's nowhere to put the tank. So I'll explain a little bit more about the tank in another question. But what we are doing is taking steps to see if we can accelerate that and look at some form of short-term rental of LNG storage tanks, not the 6,200 cubic meters that this big tank will have, but maybe smaller ones that will allow Africa to start their production. The next question was, we appreciate there's time slips, but can you give us some positive news? You've got 31 TCF of gas to discover. That's true. We've got a lot of gas in the license from prospects, leads and plays. And clearly the important bit for that is, where do we put our focus? Well, our focus has been very much on developing the LNG project and developing the micro LNG to get revenue. That's our strategy. Get some revenue into the company, get some cash flow, and then develop the large acreage position. Because it's on land, we can do it step by step. That said, we've got the Cal Valley deal. So that's a TE4 well. And what we want to try and do is put 3-well program together. So for me, it's important that we bring the Cal Valley guys into NOL as well, and I'm trying to convince them to do that. They haven't accepted that just yet, but we hope to get them there on that. And that really takes it into the next question: is where are we with NOL? And NOL, I would say that we're working closely with ONHYM and the ministry, and we've applied for an extension of NOL into the first complementary period. And that will allow us to take that M5 well into a time slot that will allow us to drill T4 and M5 and hopefully SPK1 all in the same time. The next question was, and I'm going to mix them a little bit so that we'll go between the project and the exploration and phase 2, etc., and financing. When's the plant going to be up and running? same question. And I think this is where I can talk a little bit about the LNG tank. The LNG tank is 2 walls, 2 cylindrical flat bottom tanks. One is an outer wall of pretty robust carbon steel, and the inner is a very flimsy, and you saw that picture, stainless steel. So imagine picking up some tin foil, 2 meters by 4 meters, and holding out in the garden, and the wind blowing it around. We've got to be very careful when we lift this and then install it, that it doesn't crimp, it doesn't bend, and it slots in place. Last week we had 50-kilometer-hour winds out at Tendrara, and the windsock was completely horizontal. There's no way you can lift that sort of equipment, that sort of stuff in that type of wind. Saying that, we've got specialist hydraulic jacks going to the site, and the construction supervisors already on site, and Cryo Spain, who are going to guarantee the performance of this, are sending their supervisor to site right now. So I'm hoping the outer tank, the commencement of that construction will start very shortly, and that the inner tank, which is the key one, the kit is coming down to Morocco in the next week or so, and then that will start coming through. So that's the critical path, is getting that tank ready. And of course, we're doing everything we can to speed up ETAL Fluids, and we've asked them to come with acceleration plans. And we've also looked at temporary storage for the LNG tanks, so that we can, provided the processing facilities are there, we can maybe take some smaller volumes, not necessarily the 6,200 cubic meters of storage, but it will still allow Africa Gas to load LNG. And the ramp up period that Africa Gas have, they're not going to be at full plateau in the first day. So they need to bring their clients on one after the other. A financing one, Sound, despite very much better managed finances, so a compliment to Gary there, Sound still burns through your cash. Aren't you going to run out of money soon, and aren't you going to be insolvent? No, and we're completing the year-end accounts now, and we'll publish those sometime in the next, I think it's in the second quarter, early second quarter. I've shown you the slide that we've got for cash in hand. The project's got its money through Africa Gas and ETAL Fluids. ETAL Fluids are financing the energy plant. So one of the ways we've been saving costs is to try and reduce our external costs on consultants' resources. So Investor Meet, for instance, is one way of saving costs, and we've reduced our IR bill. Right, this question more about the LNG tanks. Why is it taking so long? Has Africa Gas withdrawn its funding? Is ETAL Fluid insolvent? Has a decision made to shelve the project? Lots of the answers are no to that. I would say what I've told you about the Africa Gas, we've still got 6 million to draw down. They haven't withdrawn their funding. ETAL Fluids is active in several North African and European countries. They have multiple businesses. They're not insolvent. Is the project being shelved? No. If it has been, we would have had to RNS it by now. Another quick one, is there a bankruptcy risk? Well, we're deep into phase 1. We want to get phase 2. So no, I think we're not going to go bankrupt. Can we explain the actual share value? Clearly, along with you guys and our 2 main shareholders, we are impatient for the revenue. Maybe some shareholders couldn't stay the journey. The partnering that we're doing with Cal Valley is important. That brings to us, when we've closed that, a year and a half, maybe even 2 years of back costs. So considerable amount of back costs that Sound have put in. So that would be helpful into redeploying that money into other areas in the Sound business. One I quite like, and thank you for this question, are you confident on Sound Energy's future? Well, I'm almost in my 5th year here. So me, definitely. But I've also got a team that's been with me for 5 years. And so we're not giving up when we're so close. We put this plan together, we're executing it, and we can see it's delivering. I don't know if any of you listened to GB News on Monday when the Prime Minister did a speech, but I'm sounding a bit like him. We do have a plan. We're sticking with it. We're going to deliver it. So, yes, I'm absolutely confident about the future. We've heard nothing about Cal Valley. Is the agreement still going ahead? Yes, it is. And I've presented that in the slides. I'm in active conversations with Cal Valley every day. We're at the definitive documentation size. This is a long question, so bear with me. It's all about phase one, phase two, and have we got enough funds to carry on? Well, what people are saying is, can we drop phase one, and if we just carry on with doing phase two? The answer is no. Phase one is integral to the concession development plan that's agreed with the ministry. So we need to deliver that. It supplies gas to the industrial market through Africa Gas. And that means there's many buyers of that gas, and could be more. We get requests all the time for more gas, more LNG. The pipeline project is sold for the power in the power stations, and ONE have 2 power stations that need this gas, and there's a plan to build more gas to power fire stations, power stations. So we've got a lot more gas to sell. I'd like to sell gas down the pipeline, but I would also like to sell gas as LNG, and maybe there's other forms of work we can do that. Again, somebody asked me, are we going about insolvency? No, that's not in my horizon. Could we, this question is more about financing again. Is it possible that we can change the clock on the 10-year tax-free corporation tax-free period? Because we've got phase one producing, and phase two won't produce for another 2 years, 2.5 years, or whatever it is from FID. So yeah, we've eaten into that 10-year period. Can we convince the tax authority to change the rules for us? Tough, I think, is the answer. We are friends with the tax authority, and they are being very supportive of putting a good structure together when we come to finance phase two in a joint venture approach with ONIM. Don't forget our main state partner, ONIM. So we're friends with them. The 10-year tax holiday is good to have, but I think you'd find it very difficult to convince the tax authorities to change that timing. The question was also, have Cal Valley given up on phase one? No, they haven't. Why? Yeah, there was a question about production tubing. I've explained that regarding TE4. Cal Valley are ready to come in and drill that. They want to drill TE4 first because they see it's only 5 kilometers away from the production site, and it's the obvious one to tie in very quickly. So provided TE4 delivers the gas levels that we're trying to do, and we're going to try and drill that in a good way, we can have that on production pretty quickly. We also talk about drilling the wells vertically or horizontally. In the past, the T6 and T7 were long horizontal wells and multi-stage stimulated. We've learnt a lot from having vertical wells and then horizontal wells. And there's analogies. If you've got a well that's vertical and you've tested it at a certain flow rate, and then you want to drill a horizontal well in the same location, you can make a pretty good estimate of what the flow rates will be. So you would save a lot of exploration dollars by drilling a vertical well and testing a vertical well. But saying that, we're going to look at different options. We're also looking at using the Star Valley rig, and to see whether that, because it's a much lighter rig, a much cheaper rig to use than re-engaging with our Deutag rig that we have in boxes at Tendrara at the moment, which is a much heavier rig and a slower rig to move around, but it's a more capable rig for drilling long horizontal wells. So we're going to see what we can do with optimizing our exploration drilling. We had a good question about ESG, and I have a long answer on ESG to give people. But yes, ESG is always important in our work, environment, social, and governance. The environmental side, I can say that we've adopted standards. We're monitoring our emissions, and for this year, this year just gone, it's around about 300 tons of CO2 equivalent. Primarily, that's the diesel to run the equipment that we're using at site for travel, power for the construction activities. Clearly, that will go up as we do more construction activities next year. But we're also looking at optimizing the CO2 that we actually have in our gas, and then we're going to see about recovering that. So that's part of our environmental work that we're ongoing with. The social side is about people and how we're treating people. Our Mohammed Sagiri, our COO, was out at the location last week. He was meeting the governors, he was meeting the local people, local tribes, and we employ as many people locally as we can, and in all sorts of support roles, and where possible, we would prefer to take local people. About 98% of our workforce is Moroccan, but not all from the east of Morocco. And this is all about our social license to operate. So it's important for us to do that. And governance, well, you may know that the Quoted Companies Alliance have modified their rules and requesting people to start utilising that. We are going to be doing that in the fiscal year for 2024, and we're incorporating some of those updates in our work as it goes on now. Does the company consider it appropriate and legal to have withheld any corporate updates over the last 4 months? No, we don't withhold any updates. Anything that's needed is immediately released through the RNS process. Like it or loathe it, we do that. We have a nomad that we work hand in hand with, and so I can assure you any price sensitive information is released immediately. It's true that we could do updates, more like this, more and more, but we need to do it when there's something to talk about. As things come through, we'll get that information to the shareholders. But please bear in mind, if deadlines are not met, remember the old adage, no news is good news. If it's bad news, we'd have to announce it, okay? What's going on in Sidi Mokhtar? Well, yes, we've, similar to Anawal, we are recommending and have been discussing with ONIM to extend that. We've got some seismic commitments to do with Sidi Mokhtar, and we're actually talking to people about coming into that license right now, but nothing to announce formally at the moment. A question on money, are you going to run out of money again? The answer is not yet. We have cut costs, and I think that's important to separate out what the project costs are from what's needed to run an AIM-listed company. And of course, the majority of our people are active for the company and are active on the project. An activity, whether it's our geoscientists working on the wells, whether it's Mohammed Sagiri on all the operations and all the construction activity, whether it's our finance accountants working on the books, whether it's our meetings with joint venture partners, with ONIM. So, project costs also include some of the manpower costs. So we've cut our G&A costs dramatically, and we're still doing that as we go along. So our run rate is round about £250,000 a month now. So yeah, we've eked out a living on that one. A question that questioned, are the Moroccans committed to supporting sound? Can you give me specific examples? Yes, I can. We have ONIM as a 25% paying partner. They're fully up to speed. They paid all their bills, and in fact, they paid the last one within hours of us requesting it. We have a ministry that's fully supportive. Oh yes, you say, why are they supportive? Show me. Well, I'll give you an example. The cold box is the very first cold box that ever will come to Morocco for hydrocarbons to create LNG. Under Moroccan law, you have to bring it to Morocco. They test it, they hydro test it, and they pass it in Morocco. That doesn't work. Simply that the chart guys will not guarantee shipping something halfway around the world and then saying, oh yeah, well, you tested it with water in Morocco. That's not good enough. we're not going to do that. We're not going to guarantee it. First of all, you shouldn't put water in that type of equipment unless you design it to be tested with water. So this will be pneumatically tested. It will be tested in America. It will be witnessed by the Moroccans, and the ministry has the authority and the approval to allow that to happen. So yes, there's a lot of detail that we don't go into, but the ministry is very supportive of that. And we are trailblazing a little bit here. What else is Morocco doing? Attijawaffa Bank, one of the biggest state banks, has never funded a hydrocarbon project before. Funded mining projects, it's funded projects in different businesses, but never done a hydrocarbon project like this before. So we're leading the way, they're helping us. If they didn't want to do this and weren't fully supported, they see the value in this project strategically for the country. Why has the broker SP Angel not updated its valuation model? The simple answer for that is we've asked them to wait until we've closed the deal with Cal Valley, so they can formalise that. So that's simply it. If you read the SP Angel valuation and you go back through, there's a breakdown of cash flows and models and etc. So that really gives you a good understanding of where it comes from. They risk weight phase 2, and they risk weight the uncontracted gas. So that's why we get the valuation that SP Angel have. Does the current market cap limit our funding? The current market cap is low, I agree, and yes, it's not appropriate to do an equity raise at this level, and that's why we looked for the asset divestment route through Cal Valley. So we want to avoid as much dilution as possible, and we do that by diluting at the asset level and bringing the cash in from Cal Valley such that we don't have to dilute at the corporate level through any equity raising. Is there a risk of bank funding interest rate being penal now following the 2021 interest rate rise? Well, the Moroccan base rate's around about 3%, and the term sheet we've got from Attijawaffa Bank is attractive relative to international bank funding standards. And of course, Moroccan base rates are actually higher than in 2021, maybe even 100% higher. But they're still lower than the UK base rate. So, and significantly cheaper than mezzanine or bridge financing options. So yeah, we're pleased to be working in Morocco with Moroccan banks. One more a bit personal. Have the exec team hit any performance targets that would merit a bonus? Simply no. Our KPIs are set by our remuneration committee. There's a whole suite of them. We did meet some, we exceeded some, but we clearly failed on some others. So it was our recommendation to the remuneration committee not to have a year-end bonus paid to the executive, and they fully support that view, and weren't asking us to, or weren't prepared to offer us a bonus. So the money sticks in the company and doesn't come to the executives. You've been deliberately vague on drilling. Can we get an honest statement about when the future drilling is going to come? And you haven't got any money to drill. So where's it going to come from? Well, first of all, I think we've been very clear of what we want to do on the exploration drilling with our 3 wells, T4, SBK1 and M5, and the slide at the beginning shows you the potential for those, but that is exploration and drilling, and part of that will be funded by Cal Valley. But we've also got the TE112 well, which will be drilled within the year after first gas, and that's within the project funding. So we'll have project funding for the TE112 well. What are we doing with phase 2 drilling? Well, again, that will be within the project budget. So clearly we will have development project budget, and so we will drill 112. We will drill our development for phase 2. TE4 gets drilled by Cal Valley. We would hope that we can convince Cal Valley, they haven't accepted that yet, to get involved in the NOL drilling one way or another. How long is the shipping from southern Spain and Louisiana to Morocco? These refer to 2 parts of the LNG tank. So from southern Spain, it's not actually in southern Spain, it's in northern Spain actually. So it's going to come round into Morocco down the Atlantic side. That will take a couple of days shipping, but getting it off, loading, offloading, importing, etc. Maybe a week or two. But that's due on its way now. The Louisiana was where the LNG cold box was based, and that has actually moved to California now because it's being shipped, and therefore it must be protected to stop any sea air, any salt water or salty air getting into the equipment. And whether it's going to come across land to the East Coast and then shipped, or whether it's going to go through the Panama Canal, we're still waiting for the journey management plan for that. There was a question about profits, net profits, and I explained the revenues, around about 30 million for phase 1 and 90 million from phase 2 per project, so 120 million when they're both up and running. That's the revenue. The net profits, possibly about a third of that when we look at the operating costs taken out. It's a much higher operating cost, obviously, for the rental kit for the micro LNG. Would we return that money to shareholders? Well, we've got phase 2 that we need to fund. We've got exploration wells that we need to fund. When we have a sustainable cash flow, then I think we can see as a dividend policy. Right. Are we? This is more back to the shareholders and the executive. Are we aligned with the executives? I suppose the question is the time-honored question: why aren't you buying more shares at the share price? Clearly, you know that I'm in a closed period pretty much all the time, so it's difficult. Every time an opportunity to come to buy shares, we've done that, and more important to that is Africa Gas has done that. They want to stay at 10% of our shareholding, and we do have a share incentive plan. I mean, that's well underwater, as you all know. That hasn't made anybody quit. We're all committed to delivering this project. It's almost like we're going to get this done. Don't worry. And I wouldn't say we'll work for free, but this is important to get this delivered. Can we get a quick update on the Eurobond? Yep, we did refinance that. So thank you for the person who said well done on doing that. And it was important that we got it done. And what I think it shows is that we have a supportive set of bondholders. Not all of them, admittedly, but quite a lot of them are supportive. And it's difficult to find them all. It's a publicly traded bond. But unlike other companies, they didn't come to try and take the company over. They didn't try and come and do a massive dilution. They believe the plan. They believe the strategy of a phased development of the Tendrara concession. They believe that we're going to deliver it, and they stood well away from any of the massive dilutions that companies are going through at the moment when the bondholders get disgruntled. Do the Moroccans want to produce gas? Yes, definitely. Africa Gas is a Moroccan company. They've committed to buy 10 years worth of LNG. Yes, ONEE is a state power producer. It wants to buy 10 years of energy. So yeah, they're committed. Do you consider today's share price a fair reflection of shareholder value? Well, of course, that's what do we think the share's worth? It's what the seller. There's more sellers than buyers at the moment, right? And that's the issue. There's very small liquidity at the moment as well. So I think that tells you that the people, and thank you for the long-suffering shareholders, have stuck with it. You can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We want to try and deliver value for you. We do believe that shareholders buy the shares not for a dividend play in the future, but via capital appreciation. So that's what we're after. The two main shareholders, and I talk to them pretty regularly, are definitely committed to this strategy and are supportive of me executing that. Question about Ati Bank. I haven't spoken a lot about that, but yes, it was the $230 odd million. It's a dirham loan, so it's not 230. It's whatever it is in dirhams. It's 65% of the project cost. Would they be flexible on that? I'm sure they would be, but just in case they're not, you'll have seen that the 35% is going to be funded through the farming partnering with Cal Valley. But what we did is we took steps to make sure that if Cal Valley's cap, and they've estimated what they think the cost would be, so they've capped it, but they've given us a facility to offer us more cash should we need to make that up. So a combination of, if Ati Jawaf Bank want to give us 70%, then the Cal Valley, we don't have to draw down anything on their funding. If Ati Jawaf Bank stick with the 65, maybe we have to dip into the into the Cal Valley funding. So I think that's pretty good. Have any provisions been made to put out the design and construction for phase 2? I think the key thing for me is now getting the debt financing in place, the Cal Valley deal done. With those two and the GSA signed, when all those in place, the feed is the last bit. And what you've got to be very careful of, because we had a question about costings, and if you've gone back to the engineering costs in 2021 and you've gone to 2022 when the war in Ukraine had kicked off, you would see that steel prices would have been up dramatically, energy prices are up dramatically. You look at 2022 to 2023, steel prices are down 30%, energy prices are down 300%. So when you pick your time in the market with the engineering contractors is what you get. This has been a problem for Retail Fluid because they hit the market when energy prices were going up, steel prices were going up, etc. We're going to be careful that we hit the market to refresh our feed when everything's in place, and that we feel that we can get a good tendered process to get competitive prices. So we had a couple more questions, and there were some ones. I think I've covered most things there. So Paul, can I pass back to you, and then I can have a read through some of the ones that are on the slide.
Absolutely. Look, Graham, thanks indeed for covering off all those pre-submitted questions. And as I say, if you click on that Q&A tab, you'll see a number of questions that we've had through. Due to the number of attendees on today's presentation as well, Graham's probably not going to have a chance to get through every question that's been processed and through the system today. However, we'll review all those questions, and where appropriate to do so, we'll publish responses. But Graham, when you do get a chance just to look through those, if I should ask you just to start at the top and just pick out those questions or subject areas you haven't covered off, and I'll pick up from you at the end.
Okay, well, let me see if I can do them. And apologies if I don't have notes written down. So how many dollars are owed to the Moroccan tax authority as a result? So what we did, we agreed $2.5 million payment to them over 6 years. The first payment was made at the tail end of last year, which was $250,000. And I think we've got it in the annual report. If you go back to the annual report, I think we've got it in there. But it's phased over 6 years, and the last 2 years are the majority. I think over $1.5 million in the last couple of years. But forgive me if I don't have the detail. Are we going to drill appraisal wells on the Tendrera Height? Well, we're actually going to drill development wells. The T112 is going through, so that will be on the T5 Horst. The T4 Horst is an exploration well, and we will drill on the high there. Will this mean more advanced scanning methods? I'm not sure what that means. We've got good seismic. The 2018 seismic was very good. And would we use different technologies? We're always open to that on the exploration front. I think more, though, it's to, we've identified some pretty robust prospects now. It's to get those drilled. I'm not going to answer the question about liquidity to meet G&A expenses. I answered that. Roughly what our burn rate is, and you can do the sums yourself. Schlumberger MPI, yep, you're quite right. There is an MPI that's a lien on Sound Energy Morocco East, and that is a Sound Energy Morocco East, not Sound Energy Meridia or Onim cost. but that's factored in the cash flows that we've talked to you about. Will the company meet all conditions precedent to get local bank financing? The answer is we are working hard to do that. So yes, mostly it's centered around the gas sales agreement, and a lot of things have been ironed out. One or two need to be closed, and we've got the ministries involved in helping on that. Following COP20 through evidence of stop oil, anti-fossil. No, Morocco has a very advanced, actually, energy transition plan. Core to it is gas. So in Morocco, everybody accepts, and I think you'll find that's going to be the case in Europe now. The EU has decided that gas is part of its plan. Funding has changed even in the EU regarding gas. So we haven't seen any of that. Of course, there's some CO2 emissions, and without going on my spiel and hobby horse on emissions, etc., but methane emissions are far worse than some of the CO2 emissions, and hang around longer. But that's a whole different topic. But the simple answer to that is no. Morocco is very supportive of gas being central to its energy transition plan. Somebody here saying, thanks for the good activity. When are you reasonably expecting exploration? Can we see Q3, Q4? We are ready, have designed and are ready to drill T4, assuming the Deutag rig, because that's the one we have on contract. And I think it's fair to say that I quite like the Star Valley rig. It's an active rig. It's a lighter weight rig, so we have to be careful. We have to look at the hook load of the rigs. If Cal Valley come through and we close with Cal Valley soon, the permitting and the prep for the well, maybe we could even get it done we could spud by the end of this year. But don't hold me to that. But I've got a very keen geoscientist who's desperate to get that well drilled. Have you any engagement of interest from UK institutional investors in Sound? Well, we do. In that pie chart I showed you earlier on, there are some institutional shareholders, not as many as we want, and I am talking to institutions. The issue is, and it goes back to that COP23 issue, is are they precluded from investing in hydrocarbons? And you see various banks and institutions coming out saying they're not going to do that. Then a couple of years later, BlackRock was a prime example of coming back 6 months later or 9 months later saying, oh, look at this, we don't make the returns we promised everybody. Maybe we'll invest in gas because that's sort of a transition fuel. So we can try and do that. Is there a further dilutions of shares likely in the near future? Clearly we do what we have to do to keep the company sane and alive, but you can see our preference is not to dilute. And over the last 2 years, we only done one raise. So we didn't do a raise last year. We did do the convertible, which we're suffering from, I admit, which had the conversions. But other than that, no, I'm not planning to that. I do know that should we choose to do a raise, it's got to be done at the right price, and Africa Gas would want to up their stake back to 10%. In which quarter this year do you envision the LNG plant to be generating cash? Good question. It will be the same quarter as we get the thing on production and we have the storage ready. Sorry, I can't be more specific. We are having deep discussions with Ital Fluids, looking at acceleration plans from their current schedule. But their current schedule shows that they will have the plant available this year.
Graham, thank you very much. You've answered every single question that's come through, and thank you to all the investors that have submitted those. And of course, any further questions that come through, Graham and the team will have the opportunity to review those. As I say, we'll publish responses where appropriate to do so on the Investor Meet Company platform. Before redirecting investors to provide you with their feedback, which is particularly important to you and the company, Graham, could I ask you just for a few closing comments, please?
Yeah, I didn't even have time to get a glass of water. I think the main thing to say is, and I saw that in quite a lot of the questions, is people don't believe this is happening. This is really happening, all right? This is definitely going to take place. Have we got a committed Sound team? The whole team, it's almost, well, I don't know, I'm sure there's a right terminology for it, but we are going to get this done. We are one team. all we want to do is get this thing on production, and then I think the thing will start to snowball. Yes, it's frustrating with Cal Valley taking a little bit longer, but they are thorough, and it's been helpful with their comments. So 2024 for me, we've got to construct, we've got to commission, we've got to produce gas at Tendrara. We've got to close all those documents. I know it doesn't look like much, it's not operations, it's not stuff in the field, but there's a lot of work going on with paper going between companies. And these are 25-year contracts, 10-year contracts. We've got to get these in place. So close the partnering divestment, need to do that. Close the financing with Atijuafa Bank. Close the gas sales agreement with ONE, and then restart. Get the feed going, refreshed, so that we can take FID and then reactivate that exploration. I'm confident that our small team can deliver that. It's tough with the resources that we've got: fiscal, commercial, financial, human. There's wars going on. Shipping routes are difficult, but we're doing our best to do it, and we're looking at ways to improve on the current plan. So we have a plan, we have a strategy, we have a plan, we're following it, we're executing on it, and we're going to deliver it. So thank you very much for your patience sticking with us, and I do hope that we see some value in the future in this stock. But when I say the future, I mean this year. So thank you very much for your time.
Fantastic. Thank you indeed for updating investors today. Can I please ask investors not to close the session? You'll be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order Graham and the team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, and I know it's greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of Sound Energy PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That concludes today's session, and good evening to you all.